Welcome to David's Math Hub. Today we will be discussing about solving two-step equations. So this is basically a step up from solving one-step equations, but this time we're going to be using two steps. So the objectives, as we usually go over, is going step by step on how to solve the variable with two steps and understanding which step goes first. That's pretty much it for the objectives. There are many others, but these are the main objectives for two-step equations. The vocabulary is basically the same thing as one-step equations, but we're doing an extra step with it. So variable is basically a unknown variable or letter. They use x and y. Constant is basically the number without the variable next to it, just the number itself. So like 7, 10, those are examples of constants. Coefficient is the number in front of the variable, the number in front of x. So it could be a whole number or as a fraction. And then an equation is just an expression with an equal sign next to it. Let's start with the first problem right here. So we have problem 1, solve for x. So if you guys have seen the first one, you have seen it with just one step. But you can see right here, we have two steps right here. So we have 2x plus 9 equals 27. So you might be wondering, what do we do first right here? So what do we do first right here is we subtract the 9 from both sides. In other words, we have to get rid of the constant because our goal is to try to get x by itself. So what we're going to do is subtract 9 to both sides. So what you do is the opposite. So the opposite of addition is subtraction. So we're going to subtract 9 to both sides. And the 9s cancel out from the left side. You're left with only 2x, and 27 minus 9 equals 18. So there we've already done one step. And now you're back to your one-step equations like we've done in one of my videos. So the last thing we just do is divide 2 to both sides. So if you divide 2 to that one side with x and the 18, the 2's cancel out from the left side and you're left with x equals 9. So keep a note that you have to first get rid of the constant, so the number without the variable, and then finally you get rid of the coefficient. Those are basically the basic steps of how to solve two-step equations. Let's try to do a little bit more complicated. Not too complicated, but let's just try it. We have problem number 2. So we solve for x. You have 2x over 3 minus 10 equals 20. I gave you the first step right here. Hopefully you guys knew right off the bat that you get rid of the constant. So we add 10 to both sides. So plus 10 on one side and plus 10 on the other side. And now you're left with 2 over 3x equals 30. So the reason why I'm showing you this is because there may be questions that your teacher may show you on the test where you may have two numbers from top and bottom. So if you remember from my first video, I didn't have that, but it's the same idea. So how do we get rid of this 2 over 3x? We use the method, the reciprocal. So you multiply 3 over 2 to both sides. Keep, change, flip. You keep the 2 over 3x the same. You change that division to multiplication, and then you're just flipping those two numbers. So the 3 goes into the numerator, the top, and the 2 goes into the denominator, the bottom. So we're going to multiply 3 over 2 to both sides. Once you've done that, you're going to get 6x, right? 3 times 2x equals 6x, and 2 times 3 equals 6 equals 30 times 3 equals 90, and 1 times 2 equals 2. So you're left with 6x over 6 is equal to 90 over 2. You're going to notice that these 6's cancel out because 6 divided by 6 is x, and then you just simplify 90 over 2. So 90 divided by 2 is 45. So therefore, x equals 45. Hopefully you guys understand the steps that I've shown from the board that you can see right there. If you have any other questions, let me know. Let me show you one thing before we actually move on. So many of you may have confusions on how to determine if a number is negative or positive. So I have a really good idea of how you guys can remember this. A teacher that I've seen showed me this method. And what you do is you have this tic-tac-toe table. And basically, if you look from diagonally, all the positives win. So you have one in the top, one in the middle, and the one in the right bottom. So all the positives goes there. Now you have those negatives. So everywhere that we didn't put a plus, we put everything negative. So this is how you read it. Positive times negative equals negative. Negative times or divided by a positive is equal to negative. And negative times a negative or negative divided by negative is equal to a positive. I really found this method very, very useful. So if many of you are confused, or if you know other people that are confused on what numbers you get when dividing or multiplying for positive and negatives, be sure to share this because I think it's very, very useful. All right, now that we've done a small review on defining if something is a negative or positive, let's go into the following question. So we have something like this, problem 3. Negative 2x over 7 plus 5 is equal to 13. So the first thing you do is get rid of the constant. So you're going to subtract 5 to both sides. So when you do that, you're going to get negative 2x over 7 is equal to 8. 13 minus 5 is 8, and the 5s cancel out. And if you guys guessed multiply by the reciprocal, you are correct. Because for step 2, we're going to multiply the reciprocal of negative 2 over 7 by negative 7 over 2 to both sides. If you guys want to put the negative in the bottom, that's also fine too. But I like to do is put the negative on the top just to keep it constant and nice and neat. So what I'm going to do is do the keep change flip. So we're going to flip that 7 to the numerator and that 2 to the denominator. So we're going to multiply negative 7 over 2 times negative 2x over 7 and then equals 8 over 1, right? 8 over 1 is the same thing as 8. Just want to show you if you're not sure if some of what numbers in the denominator, times negative 7 over 2. When you simplify this, you get 14x over 14 because negative times a negative is a positive. So that's where you get the 14 in the numerator. And equals negative 56 over 2. The 14s cancel out because 14 divided by 14 is 1. And then when you divide negative 56 by 2, you get x equals negative 28, right? Because negative divided by a positive is a negative. So you get x equals negative 28. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. All right, how about you guys try out this question? It may be a little tricky, but give this a try. Be sure to pause the video to give this a shot. Okay, so hopefully you guys had enough time. So let's review this together. So step 1 is to subtract 25 to both sides, right? Because you're going to get rid of the constants first. So when you do that, you get 7x equals 0. Okay, now the last step you do is divide 7 to both sides. So when you divide 7 to both sides, you're going to notice that x equals 0. You might be wondering, if I get a 0, does that mean the question is incorrect? No. Actually, you can get variables where you get x as 0. That's also fine too. And you can also have numbers that are negative or even decimals in that. So you can basically have any answer as long as you follow these steps. So keep note that if you divide 0 with any number, you get 0. And like I said just now, it is fine if you get a 0 as an answer or a negative number for solving specifically. If you get a number that is 0 or negative or some sort of crazy number depending on the equation, that's fine, because as long as you get your answer and do the steps correctly, then that means you're on the right track. So just want to put it out there if many people are like confused of why you can have a 0 or anything crazy as an answer. So we're up to the last question. Try to give this one a try. Try to pause the video and try to see what you can come up with, and we'll go over this together. All right, let's go over this together. So we're going to add 10 to both sides. So plus 10 on the left side and the right side. You got to do the opposite. So when you do that, the 10s cancel out, and you're left with negative 3x over 2 equals 15, because 10 plus 5 is 15. And then for step 2, you're going to take the reciprocal, keep, change, flip. You're going to multiply that negative 2 over 3 to both sides. So you can either put that negative on the top or the bottom. It doesn't matter because we should still get the same answer, but I like to put it on the numerator. So we're going to multiply negative 2/3 to that negative 3x over 2. And we're going to multiply negative 2/3 or negative 2 over 3, by 15 over 1. When you simplify it, you get 6x over 6, and then on the right side, you get negative 30 over 3 for the right side. Negative 2 times 15 is negative 30, and 3 times 1 is 3. Simplified, you get x equals negative 10, because the 6's cancel out, and negative 30 divided by 3 is negative 10. Alright, so we have reached the end of the video. So before we end it, let's go over the summary. We learned how to solve equations by using 2 steps, how to determine if a number is positive and negative when multiplying and dividing, and moving the constants first, and you gotta then move the coefficients for next. So keep this in mind. You want to try to solve for x. So I like to think of it as which one doesn't have the x. So usually the constants are the ones that don't have the x, so you move those first. Then you move the coefficients or the number in front of x. Then therefore you get x by itself. And you can have zeros, fractions, decimals, and negative numbers as answers. This one I focused mainly on, having answers with zeros and negative numbers and regular numbers. Maybe if you guys want to see a video for getting answers with fractions and decimals, I'll be sure to do it. And so that you guys won't be, very crazy about having to solve them. So I could definitely do that for a separate video. So if you guys have any other questions about how to solve 2-step equations, then be sure to write it down in the comments. Thank you for joining the Math Hub, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good day, everyone.